is up, guys? It's Flo here, and I'm finally back. Kind of seems like I tend to say finally at the beginning of my tutorials, like in general, but that's not the case. Well, actually, it's been a while since I recorded my last tutorial, so why not? Alright, cool. So let's just jump right into Cinema. We actually are in Cinema already. I think I'm prepared this time, no idea. We'll see in a minute. Yeah, cool. So this tutorial is about creating a believable, nice looking, but rather simple skin texture inside Octane. This is not a realistic approach by any means. This is not aimed to be photorealism or close. It's just what I came up with within a few minutes for, I think my last 3 squares actually used this technique, and I'm pretty much satisfied with it. It looks pretty cool. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna show you today. All right, cool. So for an example, I loaded my act square because there's like, you can see it pretty well. I love this actually, it looks pretty cool. And yes, so simple scene, simple lighting. I did not change anything with the lighting, just fired up Octane. And as you can see, it looks pretty believable actually, pretty realistic, although it isn't photorealism. Cool, so first things first, this is a 3D scan of a female, obviously. I think I purchased this over at 1024 3D scan store. I'll put a link in the description for you guys. Yeah, great prices actually. I think this was like 25 bucks or whatever. Yeah, it comes with a 10K resolution texture, which is pretty nice. It's not it has not been retopologized, so it's made out of different N-guns. Quads would be best, but yeah, still fine to work with actually. So the first thing that is like pretty much the most important part, because it gives you the color and the overall look, is the skin texture itself. This tutorial, basically the skin texture, a realistic skin texture, is the base for this texture. If you're not, or if you don't already own a realistic skin texture, like the diffuse map of it, then this tutorial, I think this won't work for you. But yeah, let's jump into the texture, into the node editor actually. Yeah, let me just select this. Cool. It looks kind of messy. It's not the cleanest material really. I'm sorry for that, I apologize, but it does the job. So as you can see, it's a mixed material. The skin shader is a mixed material, which consists out of a standard Octane Glassy Material and a Octane Specular material. As you may or may not know, human skin, or actually I think pretty much any skin, has subsurface scattering on it. And yeah, I assume everyone knows what subsurface scattering is by now, at least in the real world. So yeah, that's like the first thing you need to build a believable skin material, really, is a subsurface scattering. So yeah, what I've done is, let's just fire up Octane. Not quite sure if I'm going to use it like the live viewer, but we'll see. Alright, cool. So first thing was creating the glossy material. And the glossy material actually is not complicated at all. Alright, cool. So as mentioned already, the image texture we're using is the 3D scanned image texture that comes with the 3D scan. As you can see, it's 10K by 10K. Actually, it's not real 10K, but it is pretty big. It's a really good resolution. So that's the first ingredient to our texture. The next thing is under the Glassy Material, for skin materials, I tend to use like a low index of refraction. 1.2 works good for me for some reason, so I keep it at 1.2 like pretty much every time I do a skin material. And the next thing is, yeah, let's just, cool. As already mentioned, the image texture is taking the spot in our diffuse, so that's where the color comes from. If we just apply, let me just do this. If we just apply the Glassy Material only, this is what we get. Yeah, as you can see, it looks pretty nice, to be honest, but that's mainly because it's a 3D scan texture. This texture hasn't been artificially created. It's a real human texture, a real human skin. So that's why it looks that good already. So the next thing is the roughness. Oh, did I do anything to the specular? I didn't even change the specular color. Keep that in mind. That's one thing you could change. The next thing is the roughness. I used the image texture for my roughness. I just inverted it, and I've thrown it into a gradient to basically colorize it, to make it not that rough, because I still want some highlights, and not too glossy because I don't want a wet skin. So yeah, that's where the reflection, like as you can see the highlights. I hope you can see it. I don't know how YouTube compresses the video after my upload, but yeah, it looks pretty nice. Cool. So the last thing for the Glassy Material is a bump, and that's basically derived from the image texture, once again thrown into a gradient to colorize it, to make it black and white. And then I'm multiplying it with a value of basically 5.4%. That's just because Octane doesn't need a high amount of bump to give you a nice bump. Also, I don't want like, I don't know, like a harsh bump for a skin, which would be pretty unrealistic. So yeah, that's basically our Glassy Material. That's pretty much it. That like half of the material is already done. So let's just put on our next material, which is the Subsurface Scattering Specular shader from Octane. Just as you can see, looks completely different. This is only a subsurface scattered look. Let's just select this one and see what this consists of. So as you can see, base is image texture, and this is a specular material. First things first, I did not enable fake shadows, since this is pretty much a rigid object and it's not translucent like glass. That's why I didn't enable fake, that's why I haven't gone with fake shadows. Next thing is the index. Once again, 1.2 for skin pretty much, or actually I think that's a good value for skin. Just to give it a nice refraction, because like the light is actually refracting if it once it hits the human skin. So yeah. Next thing is roughness. Yeah, it's kind of messy. It's not really sorted, but I'm just go over this one. Roughness. I already covered a subsurface scattering material. If you're not familiar why I go with a value that's pretty high, then you should definitely watch my subsurface scattering material tutorial. Yeah, I've gone with a value of 0.8, which is basically 80% for the roughness, which is really, really rough. But that's what we want for most subsurface scattering materials and for our skin, because we do not want like a translucent glass look almost. That's why I've gone with 80% roughness. The next thing is the reflection, and the reflection is again derived from our image texture. And since I do not want like full reflection, I use the image texture to vary up the reflection a little bit on certain parts, and then I mix this with a slightly orange yellowish tinted dull color just to give it like a warmish kind of skin tone. And that's mixed together 50-50. So basically like 50% image texture, 50% color. That's the reflection for our subsurface scattering. Next thing is the bump channel. Once again, I use the exact same bump as I did for the glossy. I think it wouldn't make much sense to use a different one in this case. That's why I've gone with the same bump. Okay, cool. So yeah, here comes the fun part really. For the transmission, that's basically the color of a specular material that's covered in my subsurface scattering material tutorial. Keep an eye on that. I use the image texture to drive our transmission information for the subsurface scattering, which gives us color. And here comes the subsurface scattering part. Once again, of course, subsurface scattering uses a scattering medium inside of Octane. And what I did to this is I used a float texture for the absorption. I wanted a high absorption. That's just because I think, I'm not a scientist by any means or whatever, but I think we actually do absorb a lot of light because it's not going like through our whole skin or parts of our body. At least that seems logical to me. So yeah, I've gone with a very high number for absorption. And the scattering uses a pretty much like orange yellowish, pretty bright color just to tint the scattered light a little bit. Yeah, so cool. That's basically it. And the cool thing comes in if we have a look at the mix material. So I created a mix material. Let's just apply this one. Give it 1 sec, and as you can see, it's looking pretty sweet. The thing is, I used the mix material. The special part about this is I mixed together those two materials via the fall of map node, which is a really cool node. I love it. I use it like all the time. It's really sick, and I think it's pretty much necessary if you want to create realistic looking materials. So yeah, the thing is, I used the normal versus array method, so it's pretty much sampling like from the camera perspective. That's what this means. Array is basically coming from the camera, and the minimum value is basically how much it should keep into the fall off. So it's the lowest value is always 10%, which I think is 10% of this skin material. I think it's 1, 2. So min is 1 and maximum is 2 if you mix them together. And 1 is basically like 100%, which is this one. So that's the highest value it can go. Yeah, I just played around with this fall off skew factor till I achieved a result that made me happy. And in this case it's 3. And I didn't change anything from the fall off direction, because if you're using the first method, normal versus array, then those 3 values, like basically x, y, z, have no effect. At least as far as I'm concerned, because I played around with those and it didn't change anything. Those come into play if you're using like 90 degrees or 180 degree vector methods. So yeah, the most important thing is the fall of map really, because otherwise you would be getting like the same subsurface scattering effect on your whole like mesh. And keep in mind, this also depends on your lighting. So yeah, should leave an eye for that. Cool. So here's the node editor once again. As you can see, image texture drives our color and pretty much everything in the setup. I use it to create roughness and bump maps. And then I just applied it, just like a regular material, of course. And yeah, to me it looks pretty sweet. I'm kind of happy with the result. So for a skin material, you need some gloss, obviously, because like your skin is actually reflective. except it's like a dry, 100% dry skin, which doesn't seem too healthy to me. So yeah, so I'd go with a glossy material, and you always need a subsurface scattering material. Once again, this is not a photorealistic skin tutorial. Yeah, but I hope this is useful to some of you. Alright guys, that would be it for this tutorial. I'd like to thank you once again for watching, and I hope you enjoy your day. Have a nice one, guys.